Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Patristic Faith discussion Q&A stream. I'm your host, FDA. You've tuned into KFDA. This is your host, Father Deacon Nous. All right. Let's see. I do want to make a couple announcements. The reason why we switch is that and I forgot the last couple times to do this other than yesterday, is because let's say there's some topics. First of all, not everybody wants to join in and the morning prayers, but let's say there's a question or a topic that somebody likes and wants to kind of find it later. It's really like, what day was it? Like, do you have to go through it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday prayer stream, or if I separate them out like this and have just a separate stream, it's much easier to kind of locate topics. Again, for those that want to have done their prayers, or not everybody's Orthodox and maybe they don't pray but they want to ask questions, they can come in. So I just separated. Good morning, Father bless. Anyways, announcements. If you remember, for those of you that were my students for the Canvas University courses, there was a security breach last semester that affected universities and colleges nationwide. It happened right during the midst of finals for one of the universities in Maine that I teach at, and it got shut down, and then they reopened up. And I used what's called the free for teachers. Like, so if you're a teacher, you can get your own free access to, because you have to keep in mind, universities and colleges pay Canvas a lot of money to access their educational software. And I wasn't doing the courses through the university. Otherwise, you'd have to, register and pay the university I teach at. But rather, I brought the prices down by simply just paying me, and I was using their free for teachers version. Okay, that security breach came in through the free for teachers version. So for the other colleges and universities, they opened up the Canvas. For that one, they closed it down. They're not going to open it back up. And most of the people that signed up my courses had already finished. But remember, with my courses, now there's 16 week university courses, standard from the accredited colleges and universities I teach at with the free educational software. But I didn't demand that people had to finish it in 16 weeks. You could go at your own pace. And so one of the problems is there were people who just purchased the courses and was like, I'll do it later. And I always promise people, they were like, how long do I have this? I'm like, as long as Canvas is open, you have access to. Well, guess what happened? Canvas is no longer open. They shut it down. So that presented kind of a difficult issue for me, is that, yes, some students paid, they didn't get to complete it, but again, the promise and the condition was you have access as long as Canvas is open. This was something beyond my control to do. And so for those that haven't finished the courses and still want access, first of all, I have all the pre-recorded videos and stuff like that. What is good is that today they opened up for a one-time thing for me to export all the classes. I'll change that into a zip file and then download all that stuff so that I have that. Canvas is going to create, they're not going to do a free teachers. They're going to do a completely new kind of thing. I don't know what it is. Supposedly they want to launch it in September. Then I can take all those courses and then I can re-upload them in and build them out. And then you have access. So please, if you purchase my courses and you didn't do the 16-week, week by week, and you waited, and now you don't have, just be patient. You will get all your stuff. You'll get access. It might be on a kind of new platform and new, but you'll have that. Once that's up, I'll start building out new courses as well. We're thinking about doing a hybrid course. So you have 3 types of courses that you can do in college. Audio is better because I turned it up 300% to 300%. So, I just lost my train of thought. Thought what other comments? You have in-person, like you sign up for a course. It's a 3-unit course. You have lectures, hour and a half lectures twice a week. Okay, that's the standard. Then you have what's called asynchronous courses. No live lectures, no Zoom lectures. Most professors don't provide any lectures. It's just reading. Mine are better than that because I record all my lectures in class and then have those so that I can upload for asynchronous course to make them even better than what most professors provide. The third type is what we call hybrid. And a hybrid is where once or twice a week, all the students, so it's online, but they're actually live lectures. What we're so we schedule like a night or something, and students, click on the Zoom, and we're actually thinking about doing that. We haven't done that with the Patristic Faith Canvas University courses. We are thinking about doing that for political philosophy. We're going to launch a political philosophy. I'm currently working also, I'm going to be teaching at Carroll College this upcoming semester, philosophy and film. I'm working out, I've already purchased the books. I'm building out the syllabus and the course as we speak. Once I get that, I may actually launch that as well, where people can take philosophy and film. People requested some of the courses we haven't done: metaphysics, modern philosophy, ancient philosophy. We haven't done political philosophy. We're going to do that, and philosophy and film. Okay, so there's 5 new different courses that we can actually launch for this new semester. But we got to wait for Canvas to build their new educational platform, whatever it's going to be. Okay, so that's that announcement. Any questions about that? So for those of you that purchased courses, didn't do the 16-week, and we're waiting, just be patient. You'll get your stuff. All right, let me check if we have any other super chats. Participate needs a chalk dot. All right, I'm looking for questions. We did a nice stream last night on evolution, covering Dr. Nathan Jacobs' one of his more recent things on evolution, why he rejects evolution. So that was nice. We still got to do a stream on the greatest hoax of history, Helen Keller. That will be fun. Somebody requested we do a 10-hour marathon stream on tag. Right, I'm looking for questions. Come on. 37. Oh yeah, Buck and Mano are great. I love those guys. How did... By the way, Ananias and Sapphira are not the Ananias. You know, Ananias was a common name back then, and actually the Hebrews, uh, Hananiah, uh, which of the three holy youths goes back, like, I don't know the earliest usage of Ananias, but um, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, those are the Babylonian names. Daniel, the three holy youths were cast into the furnace. But Shadrach is Ananias. Like, I don't know if you know that. Shadrach's just the Babylonian name. So that's pretty early, I don't know. I think there was also a high priest, Ananias, during the time of Christ. The temple priest. There's also Ananias, the court artist, painter for am I blanking on the king. Tell me, I'm just blanking. The king that gets the cloth of Christ, where we make the icon not made by hand. Abjar. King of Edessa, yeah. But the other Ananias is not a good Ananias. And we don't know how they died. For being disobedient. No, Agrippa's trilemma does not. So in skeptical, there's a positive and negative type of skepticism. It doesn't make a positive claim about justification's impossible altogether. It's just saying that of the three possible ways, and it's the only way, that none of those are justification. So it doesn't seem that there's possible justification. Sometimes this can be, people say, well, doesn't that assume that your statements about it no, it actually doesn't. This is kind of like and furthermore, so it's kind of like a internal critique of, it's like, I'm going to assume there's like a reduction. I'm going to assume your positions, they don't work, doesn't mean that you have a positive position itself. And furthermore, what's the option? Like, so I guess you could say with the, yes, and at some level I'm assuming there's a justification in making my statements, but I can't even justify that, like, because I don't know where to go. Like, what it, like, it certainly can't be arbitrarily just assumed. It can't be an infinite regress, and it can't be circular. Um, so there's a way to say that it doesn't look like justification is possible, and yet somehow that's a justified position. And concluding, so no, I don't think it's a contradiction. It's just. Does that make sense? I don't think it's self-refuting. You need to learn about what's called negative versus positive skepticism. Okay, so then what's the justification? See what the problem is? And I don't, because it's not a positive case, it's not positive skepticism. Um, it's not saying in every logically possible way, there's no way to, it just says, it only seems that there's three ways and none of those ways work. But yet inevitably I have to assume that my judgment about that is correct. So, yeah, I don't see that it's a problem. You'll understand what I'm saying if you go look up the differences between negative and positive. Skepticism. I don't think it's self-refuting to realize that at some level that's a correct belief. To realize the failure of the three that only seem possible. But it's not positing like a theory of like how that's actually justified. It's just there's nothing else that you can conclude from that. It's like it's right. I don't know how it's right. But it's certainly not any of those three, and it only seems that those three are possible. That's a negative and not a positive, and so the negatives avoid negative views of skepticism avoid contradictions and being self-refuting. How does the church use historical scientific method to prove? $5 from Chase. Why would the church have to use historical science when approaching certain events in Scripture? I'm not getting it. I don't think the church is obligated to use a scientific, like, to confirm events in Scripture. Like, why? And the reason why is because revelation is higher form of knowledge than science and like like historical methods and stuff like that, which again science can't even get to really knowledge statements, so or it's very difficult. So Patrick sends you $5. Thank you. How I get how now is a problem with theist, but I'm not sure why Scripture's saying death in it. I think it is a problem, but I'll tell you what the argument is. That death specifically refers to human beings. And the argument is that if it doesn't, then it's absurd, and this contradicts Scripture and Revelation. That means that if there was no death, what's no death mean? Immortal. But only human beings were created to be immortal. Therefore, if there was no ceasing to be or decomposition or whatever change of kind of structure or form, which we would typically call death in plant and animal life, then animals and plants are immortal, but Scripture and the church say that only humans are immortal, so we have a contradiction. So therefore, there must have been. I'm steel manning the argument. There wasn't death in man. It was the only being created to be immortal prior to the fall. But there was death in the animal, and maybe it looked different than. And there was a fundamental kind of change once, because man is kind of a macrocosm and microcosm the universe, and so death itself in the animal and plant kingdom that existed prior to the fall, they would probably argue, definitely took a different form and became something else. But that's the argument, is that it doesn't contradict to say that there was plant and animal death, and it does to say that there wasn't. Does that make sense? That's the steel man. I don't necessarily agree with it, but no. A good reason does not mean a true reason. They're separate. And it doesn't even have to be a belief. Right? So it doesn't. And you don't want to defeat Gettier cases. I don't know why everybody gets so hung up with the case. It's like, you want Gettier cases. A justification could be a good reason. But it could also be forming a belief not based on other beliefs or other reasons, but forming a belief in a correct way. And the incorrect way is accidental, right? Like accidentally getting the right answer. And so that's why we want to keep Gettier cases. Like, yes, it assumes that's what reductios are. You assume that it's possible, and then from those positions you see justification is not possible, and then you conclude negatively, I don't know how it's possible, but it's not those ways. But it's not contradictory. And it's actually correct. Like, those aren't justifications. Like, so I don't understand why that's contradictory to recognize that. And then take a negative position and be like, I don't know how justification is possible. right? All I can do is recognize. So it's like there's no way out. So you're not putting, that's again, you've got to go look at positive versus negative skeptic. This is it's not asserting. It's like it's kind of, it's acknowledging. It's almost passive, but like, it isn't those ways. And I don't even have a way to say that, right? That I'm justified in saying that because I'm not putting forth a positive count of justification. But I can't help but recognize that based on what words and logic and those things mean, the reductios, they don't work. So somebody's like, well, you're assuming something where like, sure, but because I can't get out of it. But I don't have a positive account of because a contradiction is asserting something and denying it. So it's kind of resigning. Be like, I don't know, like, and I can't help but based on their assertions, flipping it back on by your own assertions, it doesn't work on your. But I don't have a positive account for. And if you say that the trilemmal is a contradiction, then you actually have to, the burden of proof's on you. Okay, so if the critique of those is invalid, then it means you have the burden of proof of showing how one of those ways, because notice they're mutually exclusive. Either something in the trilemma works or it doesn't. So you say this position is contradictory, it must be false. You've just put yourself in the position, okay, if that's the case, now the burden of proof's back on me to show, well, which one is actually a justification. Does that make sense? Caden, thank you. $4.99. I wish I could join a membership. Yeah, I need to do stuff like that and then provide more content. I'm trying to get back into stuff like that. Because your content is truly some of the greatest content on Orthodox philosophy. Thank you. It's great to have all of you here and appreciate that because most people don't like nerdy philosophy stuff. We do have 76 people. That is great. Let's get that up to 77, the year of my birth. But as all of you say, quality versus not quantity in terms of numbers. So I do appreciate, I love teaching. I love that you guys love that and learning stuff. Orthoclips 49. Do we know how long Adam and Eve were in the garden? Oh, that's a great question. I don't think we do. It doesn't seem long though. The trilemma is so then again you put yourself. You have to do a fourth option. Oh. Yeah. I don't think it's fault. I think it's I use the trilemma. I don't. Again, I use Gettier. They're not your enemies. They're your friends. Because it shows that way of autonomous system building within your own space of reasons impossible. So all the trilemma is saying is there's only three ways to kind of do it from that position. That doesn't mean, therefore, there's no way to justify it, because I use the I accept the Munchausen's trilemma so that I can argue for a fourth option that is not an option like that at all, which is the negation the possibility, which means the accepting of the trilemma to say there has to be a different way. But I don't want to say a fourth option because it groups it in. It's like, well, it's like the same sort of thing, but it's like, no, it admits the trilemma and therefore it must be a radically different way. That's why I think you want to accept the trilemma. Thoughts on when Roman emperors stacked the Second Council? Doesn't that taint the period of the councils? Well, if there's no God, I guess. Um, if everything's just man-made, yeah, but I don't believe that. I believe the Lord is king, robed in righteousness, and what men intended for evil, God intends for good, and that the church is a divine human institution, and that proves the church even more against all odds. Look at the first ecumenical council too. The majority were Arians. So I had somebody I was talking to years back when I was newly Orthodox, and they thought that councils were just democratic, like just a matter of vote and stuff like that. Numbers win, and that's why none of these things are divine. I'm like, well, actually, I'm going to turn that against you. In many cases, the odds were against the Orthodox, and yet we won. That proves that God speaks through his church and can go against all, like, so I think that's just another testimony to orthodoxy. Hold on a second. I had other questions. If a good reason seems good, but is false, does this stand as a good reason? No, but that's not the Gettier problem. They're actually, you and you infer from good reasons, right? And you have, that's the whole thing. But Jones has good reasons to believe. And then he gets to a true conclusion as well. So it satisfies all the JTB. The only thing that goes wrong in this is that despite checking off all those things, there's a sense of like he accidentally gets it right. Even though he has good reasons, he has justification. It's true, what he infers to. That's why we love the Gettier problems. It's like, yes, exactly. You have to have a fourth condition. So don't fight the Gettier problem. You want it. Yes, it does. It's true. The good reason's true, right? He has good reasons, and he gets to a true conclusion for good reasons, right? It satisfies all the... God, it drives me crazy that people can't get the Gettier. All the Gettier cases have truth and good reasons. Like, that's what... The good reason is true in the sense that believers hold it to be true, but not... Yes, it actually corresponds to something, too. Like, and all the... There are actually 5 coins. There's actually sheep in the... That's what I mean. £14 from Zeesh. Thank you so much. And is that even true? Did the Roman Emperor stack the second count? Can he do that? No. It's false. I was going to say, he can call it, he can't actually stack. So I don't know where. Where you got that. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good Gettier case. I wouldn't admit that's a Gettier case. Because in the Gettier cases, those things are actually connected. So you're going to have to come up with another. And nobody, I guarantee you're not going to fix this, because the very brightest and best philosophers, if it was that easy, like, this would have been solved a long time. Like, nobody's refuted the Gettier cases, which means you're not understanding what Gettier cases are. I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but there's not a horn, a fourth. It's called a fourth condition. So what they did find with the Gettier cases is that it's not fallacy. First of all, I can see you don't understand it, like the Gettier case. And what I'm saying is, a fortiori, that as a clue to that if it was that easy, don't you think that the best and brightest would have figured that out? Sometimes I'll do Collins, but okay, so what is going wrong is somehow, even though they're, so what you did point out is, like, first of all, there's no connection between Bananas Yellow and time and 5 p.m. In the Gettier cases, there actually is a connection. However, something in the connection is both accidental and not accidental. Why? Because they're actually connected, right? Whether it's Jones or something like that, or the sheep. Yours is completely disconnected. So that's why you think, like, well, it's not a good... It's like, of course it's not. But because in all the Gettier cases, there actually is a connection there, right? That's what actually makes it a good inference, like a good reason. It's like he had good reasons to think that. Why? Because they are connected. So every Gettier case, you have to... It's not a bad... Because they're connected. That's what I'm saying. That's the difference between your cases and Gettier cases. There's a connection in the scenario that makes it a good reason to believe that. Not in fact, and what I notice is that most people that have problems with Gettier cases are Cartesians, because they think that the only because the person with the coins in the pocket is the one who gets the job. That has 5. That's how they're connected. So it's both an actual connection, unlike your bananas example, and something that isn't connected. It's the two people that he is the person versus Jones. Okay. I'm telling you, you're not getting it. I'm gonna go over this all day, but you need to study because the person, those are entirely, I guess you could show that, like, if you're told the person getting the job will actually have brown Nike, let's say white Nike shoes, like, you could form a similar way, right? So it has to be relevant enough that it's both connected such that and these are fictional. Then read up on, I don't know what the read articles on people's commentaries on. If you don't get it just from reading Gettier, then read philosophers on the problem of the Gettier problem until you get why that's a difficult problem. And what the problem is that they're both connected to a point. So on those, I mean, if you constructed an example of just something totally, it just happens to be there, right? He's wearing shoes or something like that it doesn't. So what you want to do is you want to make a Gettier case. You don't want to argue against it. So you need to go, okay, how do I make something that is both connected and unconnected so that it's relevant and both accidental? But it's relevant to the point that it actually constitutes a good reason. Not an indubitable reason, but a good enough, it's like, yeah, he's obviously justified. And at the same time, it's not connected enough to count as knowledge. That's what's going on. So what you're doing is picking things that either weren't connected in any way, or they were just there, right? So they're connected, just not strong enough to actually constitute a good reason. So you need to find what I just said. You need to find, okay, I need to create an example in my head, like that's why it works with the Jones as the man, Jones in the job example, is it's connected strong enough that it would be a good reason. Yet, we know that can't be, he doesn't know it. Why? Because there's enough element that it's not connected, it's accidental, that it makes a Gettier problem. All right. And just read articles like professors about it. Like, don't just read the Gettier problem and then be like, well, I'll just think through you're not going to get it. And it's not a fourth horn, I don't want JTB. So I don't know why everybody's working so hard to argue against Gettier. Because I want to make the point, because what's concluded from the Gettier is there has to be a fourth condition. It can't be accidental. Knowledge can't be accidental. So you lose, if you actually solve the Gettier problems, we lose a huge argument. We don't have a strong argument about accidentalism. We got Mind Jamson, 10 New Zealand. Is that what it is? Highfather made a website to track debates and logical axioms. Debbie equals library of resolve debates, Matt Clay, Steelman, find gaps. Oh, interesting. I seem to send I can't see. No, you can't send links in here, I don't think. By the way, I love you and Jay tracing the gaps of the Trinity with intellectual honesty. I would love to take a few questions. EO gaps. Why exactly 3 persons? Oh, we did this yesterday. Should I do it again? Hey, where's our clips? Yes, I want to recommend another friend. Um, who is also a PhD in philosophy. Roots of Everything. Okay, let's see. YouTube. So just one last thing on the Gettier problem. The only way out of the Gettier problem is you have to become a Cartesian infallibilist. That justifications have to be infallible. Like that's... But I don't even know anybody that believes that. I think most people, including us Orthodox, are fallibilists, so... So Dr. Zach Portube, I'd recommend him. Roots of Everything. Other philosophers. Oh man, that's rough. Matthias sends in. What's SEK again? Is that Serb? 50 Serbs. Prominent deacon left our parish after taking on too much too soon. No. Can't. Once you're out, you're out. Swedish. Unfortunately. Once you're laicized, you can't be returned to the priesthood. I don't think that there's any cases even... Yeah, it's rough, isn't it? They said you didn't need logic. Welcome, Cleve. Deacons are priests. This is like, I've even heard priests not even understand this. Like I'm like, didn't you learn this in seminary? Like, I don't get what. That doesn't mean that. Okay, so you know how they talk about Israel being a priesthood. Does that mean there are not distinct roles in that there was like the Levitical priesthood versus... So again, just kind of a word concept fallacy. Deacons are priests. I know there's some people out there that have come after me for saying that, but you can take it up with my bishop because that's what he told me and my seminary professors. So who do you trust? Some random schismatic hating, tards out there, or all the seminary professors that taught me and my archbishop? Okay. So we can talk about a priesthood as setting aside, right? Like, yes. What you think is a priest is a presbyter, deacon, and bishop. That the 3 sacerdotal order of the priesthood is what we call. But they don't have the same functions and roles. To say that is to equivocate and have the word concept. But if you even look to all of us were ordained in the same way, Herotania, in the same place, right? All of us offer the gifts, right? Now, I can't do it alone, but neither can the priest. And Father Ron, you can talk about this too. So I can't concentrate, but I can con-celebrate and offer. So there's a part in the liturgy where I hold up the gifts. And the priest behind me, through his authority, through the authority that he has through the bishop, says, thine own of thine own we offer to thee on behalf of all and for all. Who can go through the royal doors? Who offers the gifts? Who does administer this? The priest. And there's distinctions within the priesthood. And that's why you can call, in most traditions, deacons fathers. But that doesn't mean I have the role and can do everything the presbyter can. So again, laity are technically part of the priesthood, but they're not a sacerdotal priesthood, right? So there's different distinctions in the meaning of priest, right? And exactly, Justin, great point. A husband is a type of priest of the household. The house is a mini church, right? So there's all these kind of reflections of the office of the priesthood taken down. It doesn't mean, it's like an analogy, right? Yes, there's a likeness there. They're not exactly the same thing. But the sacerdotal is a distinct office. So if we say we're all priests, right? Part of the priesthood. I can do sacramental, so it just depends on what you mean by that. I administered. I can't consecrate, right? But I can administer I do every Sunday, the gifts to also, but I can only do that through the priest's authority. But the priest, the presbyter, can only do those things that's why he has antimons. No, readers are not priests. Neither are subdeacons. They're laity. Although they're called minor clergy. So you can call them clergy in the sense of minor, but they're still laity. They're not part of the sacerdotal order. I was thinking about the Malpass. I'm not actually interested in Malpass. I don't think he's a person of good faith. I'm starting to think he's a cult leader. I talked to Jay about this. Jay already debated. You saw I think he's even as a philosophy professor, I think he's a type of pseudo-intellectual. And who I think's much better, who's not, Graham Oppie. But the type of polemics that I've seen, and I'm not impressed with Malpass, like in anything that he said. I've not seen anything substantial, and all I've seen is kind of just polemical, low tier kind of stuff and I don't get that feeling from Graham Oppie. So I'd be willing to Graham Oppie seems more like a serious academic. So the more I've thought about it, I'm like, I have no interest in Malpass. And the only reason why you do is because he has Malpites. He has a cult following. And they make Oppie seems very honest and all that. Like, Malpass does not. Like, I have no interest in. Pass on Malpass. Yeah. And it's gotten worse. I don't think he was always like that. I think he just kind of gotten more cringe. And we did this video yesterday. I started like 20 minutes, like, I mean, it's the same. Remember, this is the guy that says he's an empiricist, but when he wants to and needs to, I'll not be an empiricist and I'll be an a priorist. Like, it's not as serious. You think he's serious because he's got a cult following, and everybody talks about, and it gives the illusion that these. Remember, we had a guy on here yesterday, couldn't even tell me. He's like, I think you have some substantial critiques. What was it? One of them was the second order, first order. I'm not using it the correct way. What do? I immediately refuted it in 30 seconds by just pulling up the definition of how I and what I use. I'm like, you guys are really impressed by almost anything. It's really sophisticated. Like, if I have one of my colleagues, again, in academia, tell me, this is a difficult critique, you should respond to it, I'll respond to it. But not 17-year-old, 21-year-olds terminally online with no philosophical education telling me you should respond to somebody like this. Unless you can present it in a very, like, yourself. And that's the thing. How do you know it's a substantial and sophisticated critique if you can't actually present it as that? If you could present it as, then I'd be convinced. I'd be like, yeah, that's actually difficult. You know, I mean, we actually watch 4 hours of epistemic hell. And we have this in Discord, too. You should, everybody, you should respond to this person's, like, it's, how do you know, it's really difficult. Can you state what it is? No, but you should watch it. It's like, no. If you don't know, if you can't state what the argument is, then I'm not convinced that you know that it's actually a difficult objection. And if you can, I'm open to. Does that make sense? It's because I'm an academic. I did see that. It's weird, like, in the I shouldn't look at it, but in the comments, it's weird. It's oddly degrading and complimentary at the same time. It's like, these are the stupidest people ever, and his argument's so stupid, but at least, you know, he's the best of them. At least he's an academic, but it's stupid. Like, it's kind of, kind of reading through. I'm like, all right, Father Ron, where are you? August 11th, maybe. Oh, I saw your, Cleve, forgive me, I saw your message. If I'm free, I will do that, I promise. Oh, that's weird. You got questions, I have answers. Um, Soren's debate partner yesterday. We're all priests. Yes. You are and you are not. By the way, Aristotle always says that. It's not a contradiction. Say, I'm in the room and I'm not. Because it paves the road to distinction. Sorry, it requires a distinction. Well, what do you mean by that? It means I'm physically present here, but my mind's somewhere else. Okay. So when I say, yes, I confirm that you're all priests, and yet you're not. Well, it's not a contradiction. Why? Because among all those who, and by the way, they aren't priests. So I would just deny that. I'd be like, you're not part of the priesthood. How could heretics and those outside the body of Christ be a royal priesthood? So I just deny that. Number two, of those who are, which we call laity, who are part of the body of Christ, those who are baptized into Christ. You are not baptized into Christ, who have put on Christ. Mentally assenting to 30% true doctrine and 70% heresy does not mean putting on Christ. Sorry to tell, but I believe in. It says if you believe in Him, you think that's what that means? Believe in Him means, well, I'll take 30% of what you're saying, but I'd like to keep 70% heresy. Do you think that's what it means to believe in Christ? No, you have not put on Christ. You're not part of His body. So you're not part of the royal priesthood. Of that who are, of the Orthodox, there's distinctions in that. Just as there's distinctions in the sacerdotal order, which the laity are not. It means they have an authority the laity does not. They have a charism, that the laity do not. Of the sacerdotal order, of the authority and the charism that the laity do not, even though we're all priests, because that's what they're really trying to do. And notice, it's satanic. What is one of the hallmarks, satanic ideologies and actually product of, politically speaking, in modernity, to make all things equal and to blur distinctions and boundaries, to reject hierarchy, to promote democracy, right? Remember I say John Cronus said, hell is a democracy, heaven is a monarchy. That's why Protestants are thoroughly satanic and a modern religion, a hallmark of modernity. They want, when they say they're part of the royal priesthood, they want to blur all boundaries. It's no coincidence that in many Protestant sects, the boundaries between male and female are dissolved. The dissolution of boundaries is what. So that's what they're doing. I would have called them out. I'd be like, dude, first of all, it looked like you had tarot cards on your, which is another sorcery. That's a joke. But that's what you're doing. Like, the church in the ancient world had both in the conception of nature and the polis, the household, and roles, and the priesthood, sharp boundaries and distinctions of hierarchy. They are anti-hierarchical. There's only one entity that's anti-hierarchical, and that's the devil. That's why it's a religion of Satan. Does that make sense? And of the sacerdotal order, there's distinctions in that. There's hierarchy and yeah, modernity is just dissolution of all boundaries. How do I feel about AI acceptance? It's tied to It's unavoidable. So you're going to have to use it. And as Father Paul says, the more you use it as Orthodox, the more Christian it'll become, right? So you don't run from it. This comes up in like ethics and bioethics too. It's like we live in a fallen world. We wish, this stuff would not be. But you can't live in a way that anything that even touches something or people involved morally contaminate, and therefore is not like an orthodox way of thinking. It's a weird kind of Protestant puritanicalism. So, if AI is demonic, Christianize and baptize it. That's Father Paul's. Don't run from it. Notice AI can't literally be demonic because it's not an actual entity. It can be used and can become demonic, but there's no such thing. It's like to say that AI is demonic is like Manichaeanism or something. I say use it. I say use it. That's how you can't get away from it. It's the same argument too that like with the internet. And so, yeah, I wish the internet never came out. I would not use AI to make icons. But the best way for, like, it's going to have worse effects if you run from it and don't use it, is what I'm saying. And unless you're some type of weird Puritan or some puritanical Protestant, or Hooterite, or no, what do they call them? Amish. Can't touch technology. It's evil has a positive existence and it's in the computer, and technology. Then the best way to combat it is to have kind of boundaries and rules kind of in that, and I've been working that out, and to actually use it, because the more you talk to it and feed it orthodox things, the more it'll combat. But it drives me crazy. People are like, "Oh my God, it's it's evil," and I'm running away. It's like, don't do, yeah, don't do. Like, there's certain things I'll tell you don't do with AI. And it'll never become sentient. Yes, I believe UFOs are one of two things. It's either the military doing weird stuff and technology, it's, very advanced, and or both. It's demonic. But I do not believe that there are biologically other intelligent beings that evolved other places. And in fact, I think that that's mathematically and logically impossible. I learned that early on after reading Tipler and Barrow's The Cosmological Anthropic Principle, the book. I'm like, went through the mathematics of it. I'm like, it's literally mathematically impossible that could ever happen. So what does it follows? It's like the two conclusions I just mentioned follow. All right. Let me check. There was something else I wanted to talk about. Have I done a refutation stream on Lutheran and Fortnite? No, that's a good idea. specifically on Lutheranism. So what would that mean? It would have to be a like not just something that applies to all, but like something specific that Lutheranism itself, that other Protestant sects don't have? That's an interesting question. All right, hold on. Something on. Dude, neo-pagans. They just never go away, do they? All right, question. Pretty sure heaven is on another plane of existence. It's here and beyond here. Heaven's here on earth, right? So it's both here and it's transcends here. Remember, we're talking both and. Corleone, 199, stance on women, priests, wives. No, I would absolutely not allow that. He's saying women or priests or priest wives. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. Again, it blurs. Holy nope. It dissolves boundaries. It confuses. By the way, that's what I want to talk about. I remembered. Furries. Let's talk about furries. Cleve, come on. Cleve and I are on like the same page when it comes to our hatred of an obsession of hating furries. All right. No, it's not women in the priesthood. He's saying women or priest wives. Yeah, I don't think that they. I don't know what category of wrong that goes into. Um, like generally, like again, I would say it's dangerous because it confuses, especially in this day and age, roles, and I don't. It could be gender related, like like I don't know if there's a specific candidate that absolutely like it says women should never ever give up, and other than the general kind of concept of women not teaching, but there are exceptions to that. Uh, so that's what I'm saying is that yeah, it's a wrong, it's a problem, but I don't know exactly what category to put it in, other than like we shouldn't be doing it. Does that make sense? All right. So the reason I was thinking about this is And one of these recent, remember the Romanian bishop condemns furries, called it human degradation caused by progressivism. And what's amazing about this is these Orthodox trying to defend it. So I'm going to talk about this. Because answer some of these objections. I wish I could find it now. Where I... Can you get a honey, like, if they identify as literally an identity, and I don't mean, I put a mascot on during do a football game, or Halloween I dressed up as, I mean, nobody in doing that thinks identify that there's actually a scene and identity. Can you get hunting license? Oh, well, they identified as animals, and this hunting allows for... Oh, God, disgusting. It's literally the same, like, the gay stuff. Hold on a second, I gotta pull this up and show you. Yeah, great. Hold on to that thought about Disney, please.
Book of Genesis, which means we are talking.
So the furries have been going around putting this. He thinks he's Christian. You aren't a true follower like us. Christ, my heart is yours. Isn't this the same basically template that the trans and the gays? How is that possible? Because you're not... How can you say that your sin that you're unrepentant of, which is really, I mean, this is trans. Like, you're identifying with something you're not. That's a sin. You're perverting human nature. You're dissolving boundaries. That's a sin. No, you cannot call you can't say in all seriousness, Christ, my heart is yours, I'm not repenting, and I actually, my sin is my identity. But that's what's going around. These people did. So I'll tell you exactly. And Anime 2 is pretty close. Like, that should be banned too. And I'll tell you why. But I was looking for people trying to defend. What is relevant? I want to see recent. Why doesn't show... I want to use quotes. Isn't that weird? Did they shut off... Brother Nathaniel, there we go. The neo-manualist tradition in Latin. Yeah, let's do crusades. We can end this real quick, dude. Put these people in mental institutions. We will Christianize furries. You either stop being furries or like. And look at this. Good thing I'm Catholic because this guy is a what? Alright, I remember the arguments. Let's just go over. Oh, shit. That's hilarious. Oh, wow. That's why. So, alright. I'll be able to find this, but I wanted to find the person actually like there was a guy defending, and it turns out they're furry. Yeah. All right. I'll just have to tell you what the argument is because I can't find it on the person defending. Couple things. So what was happening is people pointing out. First of all, this started from a sexual degen, right? And I was even thinking about. Do you know where I first saw this? Show you a picture. I don't know if you can see that. That's Grady, the caretaker at the Overlook Hotel. And he's doing something inappropriate with what? A furry. A furry bear, right? So this person was like, no, didn't like. Oh, I know there were like roughly at the same time, like this started as a sexual degenerate, but it actually occurred at some Comic-Con or something. Like this person was arguing. By the way, that movie's The Shining. It's all about demonic possession and the devil, right? And what? Dissolution of boundaries, right? He having inappropriate sexual conduct with a person pretending to not be a human being but an animal. Okay. So what this person says is there's still a lot of good, even though the group, the furry community got infiltrated by bad people, degens. No, I just showed you from the very beginning there's a link to, okay, um, have nothing to do with evil. Like, why would you? Okay, furries in the shiny. Yeah, I figured that out like a year or two ago. Um, and so they're trying to separate, like, okay, there's bad furries. It was infiltrated. Like, there's good there. So even suppose I grant them, like, okay, that something like genetic fallacy. Just because it started bad doesn't mean. Suppose I give you that. I'd just give you a freebie. And suppose there's actually good for. That's what the person said. It's still wrong, and I'll tell you why. First of all, you're a grown adult doing children's stuff. That's perverse. Okay? This is all part of, and going back to the gentleman's point, question about Disney. Yes, Jay and I have talked about this. The purposeful infantilization of society. It's in Disney, right? Disney did, there was a purposeful push, and in movies in Hollywood, kids know best. And that was my argument against anime, too. I'm like, guess what? I stopped watching cartoons and playing with G.I. Joe toys when I was like 12 or 13. Like, why are you doing little children? Scripture says when I was a child, I spoke and thought as a child, right? So you're literally, in the definitional sense, being retarded. Like, you're keeping yourself in an infantile state and playing with dollies. Now, it doesn't mean can you never watch a cartoon. No, like, but that's not what it's about. Like, these things become identities. This is what I am. This is my group. I mean, the fact that people have an anime PFP or a furry PF, like, of a child thing is insane. Like, that's totally, literally the definition of perverse. It's like, and when you know that these groups have purposely attempted to infantilize and keep adults as children, when you engage in that stuff, beyond, and then make a culture of it or an identity, that's an absolute sin. I'd be like, that's crazy. It's totally weird. And it goes totally against orthodoxy. Number two, how could you possibly think that that's okay? Suppose there was no sexual degeneracy and there was no history of that. Yeah, Arrested Development, thank you. We live in an age and time where men think they can be women and women can think they can be both, like, and you've seen the videos of not people dressing, but like literally getting surgery to change themselves. And like, you had that one lady like barking at them, and the dog attacked her. A total, and it's pushed. It's not just people organically just becoming confused about identity and boundaries. So a dissolution of boundaries on purpose between about sex, right? Sexual orientation, proper sexual relations, about gender. Okay. I shouldn't use gender because I don't believe in gender. I believe a sex, male and female. Species. and you think it's a good idea, you join in that. You are complicit in that evil of dissolution of boundaries. You think it's a good idea when everybody's confused, you're going to dress up as an animal. And I don't mean on one day out of the year or at a football game because you're the mascot. I actually thought, well, guess you can. I'm like, are you an idiot? Clearly, that's not the same thing. This is a scene, a culture, and an identity, these people. I heard in the public schools here, they even have like litter boxes for in the public school system for. I mean, this is crazy. Like Tavistock insanity. I just can't believe there's people that actually support this stuff. And what makes it also possible is the same thing that make trans community is the internet and these Reddit groups and stuff like that and Discord where they get in and they all confirm their insanity. Okay? We live in a crazy world. People are totally confused. They don't have any role models. They feel weird in their own skin, which is normal in adolescence anyways. And so what do? They go into, exactly like a cult, what? A group that closes them off to any other information that's an echo chamber that confirms their insanity and sin. And they build, and we know it's demonic. Why? What are demons? They're real estate agents in imaginary places, getting you to take out real estate in imaginary places. And that's what that is. It's imaginary. And they make an identity literally in something that does not exist. And we're going to defend that? That's crazy. And wow, that's good. And they're deliberately covering it up. There's no such thing. A bitch. Yeah. By the way, that's a bad thing about the AI. Like, there's like these different phases in the AI. Like, it became really based and allowed you to like all this information came out, and then they put in algorithms to kind of control that and bury and hide. I noticed that a year or two ago. It's like I started to become really based, and then it was about the proportion of school shooters and trans terrorists. I shouldn't even need a computer or data to tell me. It's clear if they're that small percentage of a society, we're hearing, like, obviously proportionally they're committing them. They're like, and furthermore, I have a causal theory about that too. It's like they're literally making them crazy and injecting them with like. Number two, so they're hormonally out of whack. I have plenty of videos and evidence of like they're aggressive and violent just when you see them in video. Like, and what does the world and the media do? They gaslight you. No way. Like, that's crazy. Like, that doesn't exist. But I'm looking at it. No, that's not what you're looking at. And there was like source and given the source. That's not the source. That doesn't exist. That's all they do is gaslight you. No, that's not a fact. You're not even looking at anything. There's no computer screen even there. Okay? We all know what's going on. I don't need data to. So, but I thought it would be interesting. I went into Grok and ChatGPT. And a couple years ago, you could kind of fight with it, and it'd be like, yeah, you're right. And then it'd pull it up. totally deleted. Like you cannot get. So now you have AI gaslighting. There was another word that I came up with. Oh, algorithmic gaslighting. They literally build like that doesn't exist. And they just delete it. You can't access it. The other one, well, crime stats among certain racial groups. You're definitely not gonna get. There was something else that. Oh, even on mainstream media, all the stuff about how the jabs are not safe and effective. Like it just came out in Normie News, right? The masks never worked, and in fact, recycling CO2, right, 24 hours a day is actually bad for you. And people started getting actually health problems and rashes and all the different. That all came out in Normie News. And yet I'd run into people still acting as if it was 2020 and they never even heard of all the contrary evidence. So I looked it up. I buried it. It algorithmically gaslighted me too on the same. I'm like, that's crazy, dude. I can't believe. I can't believe it. Algorithmic memory hold. Thank you. Yes, it's great. Another. That's right. Yeah, they just bury the. Oh, when I was in California, I couldn't believe it. Californians wear masks too because they're Canadians. They're secretly Canadians. Um, it was hot in California. I kid you not. In California, people exercise in heavy neoprene like masks and on bicycles in 95-degree heat and running. And I'm like, you know what would be a good healthy idea is to exercise in 95 where I recycle my own CO2 when I need oxygen. As one of my Christians said, COVID broke people. It literally made people insane. And then you're considered a mean like if you don't shame these people and obviously the only thing they respond to is pressure and shame. All right, we got €6. Greetings from Netherlands, Father. Greetings. Thank you for playing a big role in my sleep. Glory to God. Thank you for that. Pray for Canada also for many things, but the fires too. Do you know it's all smoky down here because of the fires? It looks awful. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Not that this would ever happen, but people think this is too extreme, but it's like people don't respond to arguments. They respond to force. Like that's people are not responsible with freedom. Like I don't believe sometimes freedom's good and certainly within the church, like um like don't have compulsion and stuff, but the church life's very different than the political life. That's why I tell people, I'm like, a guy I ran into, I'm like, he asked me if he was a Democrat trying to get me to sign up for something for him. I forget what he was running for. Asked me if I voted. I'm like, maybe. I'm like, so, I'm like, actually, that's a difficult question. Let me just tell you, I start off, we probably have nothing to discuss because I disagree with you with all your political presuppositions. I disagree with. In fact, it's all based on enlightenment, stupid enlightenment concepts. And if I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably pretty authoritarian, and I'm sick and tired of. I certainly don't believe in democracy, which is so crazy. Like I saw a sign like our democracy's under. You always see this democracy now. You know we don't live in a democracy because at least the founding fathers were smart enough to be like, that's the worst idea. Every thinker in Western civilization, the entire history of Western civilization was like, democracy is literally the worst form of government. We have a constitutional republic. Why? Because we don't want mob rule. That's. And so, what do you get from Democrats and the left? I never hear this for all the faults that Republicans and conservatives have. I never hear them pushing democracy. It's always the left. It's really. And liberals and Democrats. Have you noticed that? Mob mentality. Why? Because they're easy. Democracy is really easy to manipulate and control. Yeah, I think that too. Letting people vote. First of all, women voting, like, absolutely not. I'm against. And people are going to freak out when I say that, but I learned that from my wife. Women vote through their family. It was purposely designed to split and dissolve the family. The woman can't have a say in, but the family is a unit, not individual parts. Somebody asked, well, what happens when somebody's not married? A woman. She's part of what? A family. She lets the. And who thinks children should vote? But number two, I would say some sort of kind of aristocracy. But like, who thought it would be a good idea to get the biggest idiots to vote and give them, like, don't give them. Didn't it used to be like wealthy landowners and stuff, people who were educated? I would include virtue and stuff like that and work out a way through the symphony of the church and stuff like that. But yeah, like, when people want me to sign, have you register to vote? Like, can I register to vote to ban 90% of people from voting and what you're doing? Then I'll do it. But yeah, like, it's amazing going from an anarcho-capitalist libertarian to somewhat to tell the truth. Like, in terms of, like, I'm like, God, sometimes freedom's good, but like for the most part, no, absolutely not. I don't care if that's not fair. I care about winning. It's a zero-sum game. I don't believe in some stupid, abstract theory of Rawls' theory of justice beyond the veil of ignorance, in which I'm like, things aren't equal. And I don't believe in rights. And I don't believe in equal rights. I believe in salvation and the advancement of virtue of society. Almost to any means necessary. Almost. How about that? Makes me somewhat authoritarian. I'm a good. Anyways, how did that come up? And people were idiots. Jefferson, the masses are asses. Jefferson was right. And that's why he had, supported a constitutional republic in term, and then also electoral college, because it's like, yeah, don't give the idiots all the power to. We have trolls in the chat. I love trolls. Yeah, that's why we reject the left-right paradigm. That's why go look at Dr. Zachary Porchu has a really good one on this. It's better now. There is distinctions between left and right, like, and they're not necessarily morally equivalent, but they're not good. And he finds a more helpful distinction is what I've always argued between modern and ancient, which is what your point is. But I know this sounds extreme, but it's like, again, people do not respond to arguments. They're too stupid. And they have too much vice. There's too much corruption in society for them to even see the truth. They respond to fear and force. Now, again, I don't mean this in the church because the church is a very different place. So the same rule doesn't is applied everywhere at all times. Okay, we're not ethical monists. I want to make sure. I would love. It's never going to happen. That what happened in 2020 with the coup never happens again. Now, I would have people like Fauci and the people at the top that were, and I don't know if he was there's people even beyond that, publicly executed for crimes against humanity. Number two, the employers, especially the people in education and healthcare that fired people and were complicit, I think they should do some serious jail time. If you allowed it, if you're complicit, go to jail. Instill so much fear in society that this was such a horrendous evil. Right? The whole stupid Nuremberg trials, right? Like, that was what they're attempting to do. Now, of course, a lot of that's BS. We all know that. But let's say in principle. Let's just ignore that was a lot of kind of made up history, shall we say. Not all of it, but like, you get what I'm saying. What was the idea? Crimes against humanity and set a precedent where people were executed that this never happens again. So that's what I think. It'll never happen, but people would respond to that. Be like, oh yeah. Why? Because they responded to the whole made up Holly narrative. It's like, they go for that, like, look how much power that have over people. And Holly Holiday. You have something in your eye? Have you ever seen that? Like, where I remember, like, I was with Father Turbo, and I kept trying to, like, tell him not to say something in front of this person. It was at the conference. I'm like, hey, Father, don't you think and he was like, the big holiday at night before the beginning. If I was like, okay, so I don't want to reveal too much, but it was one of the years, maybe it was the first year that Father Turbo had come up here. And Father Turbo and I were baptized in the same church. We're dear friends. And I tried to do some matchmaking at the conference behind the scenes where nobody sees. That I just kind of put it and let the chips fall where they may. And there were two people I was trying to get to talk. And there was another person that I was like talking to this girl that I was like wanted to get away so that I could get the girl to talk to the. And Father Turbo was encouraging this talk between the person I wanted to remove. I'm like, hey, didn't you want to say something to, didn't you have something? And like, Father Turbo was not picking up. I'm like, He was just tripping. I mean, I'm like, then I whispered in his ear. I have a hilarious photo of. I gotta find it. Where as soon as I tell him, he's just like dying laughing. I gotta find it. It's so great when he finally figures out what I was trying to do. But you're trying to give the subtle hints, and then it's like, now I gotta make it not so subtle. Um, what year was that? Is it crazy? It's been 6 years of Montenegro conferences. Might have been 20. Was it 2022? No, it wasn't. 2022 is the Abbott Tree Farm episode. Could have like stories about like each year. Okay. 2023, probably. Let's see. Yes, I think it's 2023. Oh, I know it's that year, but it could have been. Let me go back earlier. It's a great photo. So Father Turbo's been here 3? Interesting. Maybe it's 2024. Shall we check? I didn't know I had Father Turbo that many times. That's awesome. It's like Dr. David Patrick Harry too, and I realized I'm like, I've been like 4 or 5 times now. That's cool. Sorry, but my ADD get the better of me, and I start going OCD on the. Was it 2025? All right, I'm gonna give up at some point. It's like me trying to find something. How ridiculous. Whether it's a book or a photo. What if I. All right, I'm done. Putting it away. This is gotta. And all 6, Jim Bob still hasn't come. Yeah, shame him. I'm telling you, people respond to shame. 118, great guys. We got 118 people. Those numbers are getting up. So let's ask some questions. I know. I wish we could have an honest. You know the situation. I can't talk about that stuff. Sorry. There's other people can. I'm not in a position to. Great theater production. Yeah. Let me see if I got any super chat questions. Hey, our friend from the Netherlands, I have a question for you. I went to the Netherlands once, uh, just to the airport, Amsterdam, too, before I was connecting to flying to Russia. Where's our Netherlands friend? Say hello. I want to see if you're here before I ask the question. Because there's something I noticed about Netherlands that was interesting. Yeah, I could create entire code language. That's actually a great. Why are Dutch women so big and tall? It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I was like going to the airport. I'm like, they're like all over 6 feet tall and taller. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that in a country anywhere. Good genes. Is it true or is it just a stereotype? Like because I never knew it was a stereotype, but then I was like, yeah, it's all like, but I don't think the guys are necessary. Like there's something about the women seem to be exceptionally tall compared to other countries, like how the height of women. Oh, the chemicals that came down there. Are the guys still tall too? Okay, just maybe that's you don't notice it because you kind of expect guys to be tall and women not to be as tall or taller than men. Um, and so like it's more shocking to be like, oh my goodness, who are the seed of Nephilim, of course, Nephilim genes. That's why the Nan, uh, Netherlands is actually was originally named Nephilim lands. Uh, so they have the tallest people on average. Okay, so let's figure out what would be the shortest group of people, like on average. These people are just super short. I'll put Guatemalans as a candidate. Asians might. That's interesting. Pygmies. um. Oh, not Guatemalans. Guatemalans are. But I'm thinking of Bolivians. Bolivians might be pretty short. Yet Chinese are tall among the Asians, I find. Vietnamese or Cambodians, pretty small. Bolivians or Peruvians, I think. Hobbits. Obviously, hobbits are. The people behind the ice wall, too, I heard are pretty. Oompa Loompas. Is Pygmy an actual, like, ethnic group? I'm gonna look that up. Is Pygmy. Yeah, it's an actual ethnic. Short stature. Adult average heights are often under 5 feet, but they're diverse. There's not a single ethnic group. They speak different languages. Pygmy is an external label from Greek mythology meaning fist-sized or dwarf. Yeah, that's my... Interesting, huh? Little people of Ireland, yeah. Leprechauns. I say leprechauns are pretty... What was... Is it Mulholland? Like it's one of David Lynch's where it has the guy's played in several, but he's like a little midget, kind of trippy dude. Do you know what I'm talking about? All right, other questions before we pack up. Pack it up. Good to see the numbers are going up. Do I know any clergy in Toronto? I don't. I don't think I know any clergy in Canada other than Father Ron and Father Mikhail. So I apologize. Who you should ask? Mano. Isn't Mano in Toronto? Have you heard about how Father Florasi's theology may have been influenced by Sagan philosophy? Yeah. I'm sure my theology's... I don't say my theology. I hope it's not my theology and it's the Orthodox theology. All right. Come on, questions, guys. Um, for those of you in the Montana area, don't forget that August 7th and 8th is our sister parish St. Herman's feast day with his our bishop, His Eminence Archbishop Maxime, who's going to be coming for that. I'll be there. We will be playing music. The Salty Chuck 967, $5. What's the difference between death and corruption? That's a great question. So both of those can have kind of multiple meanings, right? So in one sense, death means the separate, like it could be the ceasing of the being of something. It could be the separation of the soul from the body. And then corruption, there could be different meanings too. So corruption would be changing from something's original state to a degraded state, a lower state. Uh, um, but it does seem that we can only talk about that in light of death, right? And non-being, that it's like it's a movement, like if there's a lower state that's not the way it's supposed to be, there's a notion of privation, and the ultimate sense of privation is non-being and death, right? So corruption could also, in the sense of changing of a state to a lower state such that something doesn't function or operate the way it should be, morally, biologically, intellectually, etc. So it's always in the sense of privation, I think. Yeah, it's not being the way that it should be. And that's why I can see, in light of that conversation, I know why and how I don't agree with it, but it's not easily dismissed. The idea of how somebody could say there was death before the fall in terms of uh, animal and plant, death in the sense of ceasing to be, but not corruption, because that's what they were created to be, that not immortal. So I could see how somebody makes that argument. And the only reason why I'm saying this, people are like, oh, I just can't believe something. It's like, that's the stupidest. It's like, it may be wrong, but it's not that stupid. Like, maybe you're not understanding the argument. Like, and how somebody could say, like, look, I believe it's wrong. And I think that's what Dr. Jacobs was saying, too. I believe it's wrong, but does it directly contradict explicitly something in the church that it's like, there's no way, that's I think what, I don't believe that plants died before. I'm saying that there are Orthodox that think that death only applied to humans, and that animals were not created to be immortal. That means they would cease to be, they were created to cease not to be in certain ways. That's what their arguments are. I don't believe that. I have arguments against that, but I'm telling you, and it's going to hinge on the difference between death and corruption. But eating a plant kills it. It changes its form. But if it was created to be that way, what do you think? I think the answer is pretty clear. Is there a false union between the EP and Rome? What should the faithful do in those jurisdictions? What do you think the answer is? Also, there was an argument too, going to like the etymology of the soul is immortal. And yeah, human beings were created to be immortal. They're the only ones. I do agree with that. There's another argument too that who's the Gnostic troll? Because the principle of his immortality did not reside in himself. He wasn't a necessary being. That's why. For example, like even the pagans knew, and Aristotle, Plato, the soul is immortal. However, souls, animas, or forms do not exist on their own right. So they can't, even in their nature, they're immortal. They don't exist. They're not self-subsisting being, right? So yeah, they depend on the creator to make them that way and sustain their immortality. Like, I don't see what the big deal is. There's also arguments to the etymology of garden, jardin, like you go through the French and kind of understand. A garden is enclosed, right? So you start thinking about it protects. There's even gates at the garden, right, in Eden. So what some theologians have, I just told you, it cannot be the principle of existence of itself. It depends on. But the soul is immortal. Like even apart from the tree of life, death means the separation of. So it depends on what you mean. Adam's the body is not immortal. The soul is. Everybody that knows anything knows that. In of itself can exist, of course not. However, when death enters, which is the separation of soul and body, right? Even apart from the tree of life, the soul still continues to exist of its own nature. And because it was given a nature and is sustained by the truly immortal one who's self-subsisting immortality. Like, why is that hard to understand? Do you not understand the difference between a principle and the things that depend on? The principle of immortality, the one who is truly immortal, creates us in his own image and makes the essence or form of immortal. Even if we're separated from the tree of life. I don't know how else to easier to explain that to you. Dude, what the frick is wrong with you? Are you retarded? Quit spamming my thing with the same stupid. Are you Muslim? This is what Muslims do. Yeah. One more chance. Say one more retarded thing, I dare you. Say it, come on. Medically stupid, that's a good. Double dog dare you. I feel like a Samuel L. Jackson. Say one time, I dare you. There was another question before I got derailed. Good point. Depends on exactly. So I had some other catechesis. Well, my priest retired, so and of the parish I used to attend, the Romanian. There's a good Greek parish actually. St. John's. Um, St. Luke's in Garden Grove. Um, oh, somebody asked me, speaking of Greeks, what happens if the Polish Union? Then the Greeks under the EPO apostatized. You can't go to. And this is the great thing about not being papists, right? You are baptized in the Orthodox Church. You are not baptized into a jurisdiction. There's no such thing as a Greek Orthodox or Serbian Orthodox, Romanian, Russian Orthodox. You're Orthodox. In terms of administration and decentralization, there are autocephalies and decentralized jurisdictions. Okay? What that means is when you're baptized to a church, the Orthodox Church, it'll inevitably be a particular parish. And inevitably that particular parish that you attend will be administratively under a jurisdiction. Say it's Greek. You are not Greek Orthodox. You go to, currently, you're baptized or go to a Greek Orthodox parish. You are not clergy. You are not wedded and bound to a jurisdiction. We are. To an altar. As Father Russell says, the cuffs. He gives a symbol like handcuffed to the altar. You have a lot more freedom. So you just, think about what if the parish I was going to became a weird cult and apostatized? What would Jesus be like? You'd be like, well, I'm not tied to the parish, other than I was tithing maybe, and I go to another parish that's not a weird cult that apostatized. So we really need to break away from this jurisdictional, I'm Rokor, I'm Antiochian. I'm like, no, you're not. You're Orthodox. You're free to go wherever you want. Now, you have a certain duty while you're attending, is that particular parish is your family, but if your family divorces you, you're not bound to keep going over to their house, right? They divorce. That's basically what that is. They committed an affair and a divorce if they apostatize. So problem solved. You're just they're not Orthodox anymore. So you got to ask, who are you really married to? Am I married to a property? Or am I married to the Orthodox Church? At the Orthodox Church, you go to the Orthodox Church. Joanne 499. Please remember my mom, Jeannie, and dog. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Memory eternal. We'll keep praying for them. Keep putting them in the chat on the morning prayers. If I went to South Africa, I'm definitely surfing. Your human image is your form, your essence. What does noise mean? Oh. Stay strong. Okay. That's your nature. So, yes, that's what your soul is. Your soul doesn't dissolve, doesn't go into soul sleep. And because God created to be immortal. I'm like the weirdo, whatever he was. I don't even know what he was saying. And again, it goes back to God created the soul so it can't not cease to be. Okay? It can be corrupted. What does corrupted mean? Well, it's immaterial. Immaterial can't be corrupted in terms of matter, right? Like, only matter can be corrupted. So the only way that can apply to corruption is not its existence, because it's actuality. It's in actuality. How can actuality not be actuality? Aristotle makes this argument. This is what the immortality of the soul. Corruption is change. So the only thing that can change is matter, but with the soul, when it's released from the condition of corruption and change, i.e. matter, cannot not cease to be. Like, that's immortality. Okay, so what does it mean, soul corruption? The soul can acquire virtues or vices. So the only change that the soul can actually take is in terms of forms, right? Receiving knowledge, or virtues or vices. Not its actual existence. Why? Because it's actuality. It's not potency is matter. So that's a great refutation of that guy. Now, is it the ultimate principle of immortality? No. That's where we say the only immortal one, truly wholly immortal, is God. We are relatively speaking, right? Because God created us in his image, and he created the souls to be that way. Not hard to understand. Changes. I would put it this way. The relation between change and corruption. All corruption is a type of change, not all change is a type of corruption. Do other jurisdictions receive Protestant Catholics by chrismation alone? Yeah. The only ones that don't are Rokor. Some demand, because Protestants and Catholics, although lacking the sacramental charism and energy of the grace, have a valid formula for the Trinity. Some will, the bishops will of the jurisdictions will demand that they not be quote unquote rebaptized, but received through chrismation, which completes whatever was lacking outside of the church in that formula. Some bishops may say it's up to you, the priest, to decide what you want to do with, but just, that's not a big hang up for me. I think it's so weird. I wish, especially in this confusing times, bishops would do just like receive everybody through baptism. But I don't think there's anything uncanonical about it. I think they have the power to. That's precisely what the episcopacy is, the ability to make that decision. So I don't know why people get so hung up. It's just autistic rigorism. Rigidity, hyper-religiosity. We are not made from nothing. Who told you we're made from nothing? Look at the creation account. God takes the dust of the earth, matter, he forms it, and then he breathes life into. Okay? He creates an essence, your body returns to dust. But again, your the soul is not dust, it's not matter, so it can't return. And once it's created as actuality, it can't cease to be actuality. So it can't return into nothingness because it is. It's being. That would require a principle of change with soul, but a soul is a form, and form is actuality and doesn't change. So once God creates that, yes, they exist as... That's like saying once God creates from his divine logoi the universal and the essence of triangle, do you really think that if you erase every single triangle on a whiteboard, that triangles cease to exist? Triangles go back into dust, or it's like, no, like, because they're forms. Once they're created, like, they exist forever. You can't get rid of them. Now God sustains them, right? Because they're being sustained by the divine logoi, the pattern by which... And hell is eternal, because they don't need a dynamic creator. They were created from divine logoi. So they still... in their actuality. So they don't... Once they're created... Now, that's an interesting question. I should take that. But let's see. Because we have a theory called Holmera's. There's not some Platonic realm in which they exist. They exist in things. Individual triangles in the universal exist. And God creates it that way. But there still is a way in which if you deleted and erased every triangle, they would still exist. But not in a Platonic realm. And I don't know exactly how to flesh that out more, but it's clear that that would be the case. No, the Eucharist definitely does not exist outside of the Orthodox Church. We don't say we don't know. We actually say we know. The Confessions of Dorotheus state this. Like, it's not there. Because we know the Orientals don't have it because they're not part of the body of Christ. They're not under a valid bishop, which is what the Council of Jerusalem states. Like, you split off from that, you're not part of the body of Christ, and you don't find the body of Christ in the Eucharist. It's pretty easy. But they look, 75% look like that, like, again, we're Catholic, Katoholos. It's like, it's all or nothing. And why would God make a church where it's like, other than personal salvation and stuff like that, why would he have dissolution about? It's like, you can never know where the church is, or where the sacrament is, like, or where this. It's like, like, that doesn't seem very godlike. It's not recognized outside of the church. It doesn't do anything. Okay? That's why you have to receive chrismation. Do you know that even the baptismal ceremony in the Orthodox Church, in order for it to work and be united, it's the chrism. So if you're baptizing your head, like, you would not be. So when they say valid, I don't like that term. So I mean, it seems like there's some legitimate. It's like, no, you got the formula correct. You had an attempt, and it's. I kind of have the analogy to marriage. I don't actually believe that there's legitimately sacramental marriages outside of the Orthodox Church. Only the Orthodox Church has sacraments, the grace-filled sacraments. Well, what does that mean, though? Because I do realize there was some sanctity and holiness when I got married, when my parents are married outside of the Orthodox Church and stuff like that. There's grace, the divine energies, right? Otherwise, none of us could even convert. But the mode in which that grace exists outside of the church, and marriages and baptisms and stuff like that, is obviously not the same mode that exists in the church, in the sacraments. So it's like, well, they did the best they could. There's some level of sanctity and grace in that, even being out. So what happens? You bring them in and you do what? A crowning ceremony. You complete it. You seal it. You give the grace that's only found in the church, right? The completeness. You give the chrism, complete, which says completes whatever is lacking. And you give the seal of the Holy Spirit. So life, soul comes in the logo like all creation. When it says from nothing, God created from nothing, it means there's no pre-existent matter. God didn't create you from, like, your soul from pre-existent matter, and there's no eternal souls. Okay? But not from nothing in the strict sense. It creates from him as cause. Once he creates it, an immaterial form is not going to cease to exist once it's created. So there's eternality to it, but not immortality. Does that make sense? Because immortality has a lot more packed into it. I think the language is confusing. I wouldn't. Grace-filled. There's grace. God, as the Holy Spirit fills all, the Spirit of truth that fills all things. Like, and again, there's attempts at and participations at different levels. But to say grace-filled is like complete, but it's like, no, it's absolutely not. There's no completeness outside of the Orthodox Church. Even there's different levels of participation in his grace and divine energies. So I think that's just careless language. When it says valid is confusing, I wouldn't use that. Because what if a Satanist does, this is the problem with all this, is this comes from an Augustinian form, matter, intention, where the faith is an essential part of it. So on that, you could be like, you could have valid satanic baptisms. Why? Because the faith and the belief is divorced from. So no, I don't like getting the formula and saying the words, the matter, form, and intention is not what I'd like to say is valid. That's why I said legitimate. No, there are no legitimate Protestant or Roman Catholic baptisms. No, I decided I will not do. We made a decision. I don't think Alex Malpass is a serious person. I think that he's kind of a pseudo-intellectual, even though he's a professor. I don't like that he has a cult. I don't like anything that he's doing. I've never seen a substantial critique. We did this yesterday. Everything just flat fell on its face. And the only person that I'd be willing to, that I don't think like that, is Graham Oppie. Total cult, dude. Yeah, like they're called Malpites. It's not good enough. There is no heterodox baptism that's good enough. It's incomplete. I I don't understand like what so, like you get. And there is no like Protestants don't do chrismation. All we're saying is we took your actions and words and intention as a formula, and we'll take that. Won't make you do it again, but it's not complete. That's exactly what we're saying. You have to complete it. It'd be no more, and it would just like we'd say in the Orthodox Church, a baptism without chrismation in the Orthodox is not complete. So what we can do is say, I'll take your words and your actions, right, and not make you have to repeat them, and then I'll complete it with the chrism of. But no, we actually say it's not complete. That's why there's exactly no such thing as a rebaptism. One baptism. Yeah, Oppie I'd be willing. I am not. I think Malpass has gotten worse. Are you the same person that came in here last time that tried to convince me to watch and do the review? And I think we should just ignore, like, the very fact that he has a. Do you know that there's Discord groups of Malpites working 24/7, reading all my papers and trying to destroy tags? And all they do, and most of these people, there's only a few that I met that are even educated and smart. Most of these people just regurgitate Malpitian arguments that they don't understand, which is really embarrassing. And he's their cult leader. He's their atheistic guru and priest. And you think we should give him attention. That's why I'm saying Oppie doesn't do stuff like that. So I don't really feel a need to. I don't see them as a threat. The only threat I see is the more we kind of talk about them and give them attention. Jay, and this is what I don't understand with you people. Jay already refuted Malpass and debated Malpass. So it's like, why don't you do it? Why don't we just keep doing? And this is what I see online. It's like after we've got to do it again and again and again into eternity. I'm like, I don't really see why we have to do that. Can you please expound on the difference between methodology between two? That's a hard one. That's fine, but at least I respect. Like he doesn't want to talk about it. That's fine. Like I'm not upset about that, but I'm saying categorically. Oh, Malpass made it responsive. Well, there you go. I'm sure it was another substantial. You give these guys too much power. You guys live in fear. You guys give these people way too much respect and power. Again, like the Father Russell analogy, guy comes up and prove that you love your wife. And you have to debate everybody that says you don't love your wife. Oh, you already debated them. Well, they made a response video on why you don't love your wife. What does Father Russell say? No. A confident man doesn't have to. I'm confident in the argument, and every time somebody comes up with something, again, if somebody presents me, rather than be like, oh, just an invitation to, oh, he's open to, or you should, if somebody presents to me a legitimate, substantial, that they can put in their own words, critique that he presented, that I think, yeah, I would like, that seems more sophisticated. That's the only way that I would do it. But you guys telling me, well, he didn't respond to me. You gotta, no, you're not. You guys are terrible at persuasion. Again, if you can put together why substantially, I haven't heard anything of other than like, oh, he didn't respond. Like, it's about time management too. I work with PhD. Like, just because you have a PhD doesn't mean you don't act. Why are you? Are you an Orthodox? First of all, or are you a Malpitian? I gotta answer this question before. Can you please explain the different methodology? Methodology. Oh, yeah. I think what develops in the West is a particular understanding, an approach, and methodologies. Yeah. Uh, I don't think reason's excluded in the East. I think the way that we understand and see reason is very different. So in the West, starting with Aristotle, you get kind of a type of, and you have this kind of dialectic that goes through kind of Western thought, in a type of empiricism versus a type of rationalism. You see that in Platonism, it kind of goes. Um, and I think this kind of eventually, I mean, you see this kind of play out. And either way, it becomes, the real becomes the propositional, quantitative, analytic, um, and the way that you find knowledge and different stuff is very different from. This is such a long, trying to a long conversation because it also has to do with anthropology, the notion of personhood. Like there's all these elements where, so it's not fideism. We believe in reason, but we understand reason and how you, what's primary and how you get it, and or sorry, knowledge and use it in a very different way. Why? Because it's a different metaphysics. It's a different anthropology. It's a total different notion of personhood. Um, and so those are going to make all the differences. That's not good enough. Sorry. You're not a very good. You probably learned some sort of like, not convinced. It's a Malpitian. I told you. It's a cult, dude. This is a perfect example of how this is their guru and think like it's just these vague, oh, it's first and second order critique of, it's logical, and like that doesn't tell me anything. It's too, you're not convincing. Who's a degen? Yeah, it's funny kind of watch. I'm just kind of interested in. I only listen to Tavistock and Ramcorp. I'll do it on one condition. No, I shouldn't even say that. I did get a critique from Malpitians. People were working in Malpit, and I wrote a paper about it. So he finally got it. This promissory note. He finally did the video that got. How do you know if you can't tell me other than just vague? See, the other guys, to their credit, sent me actually papers where they worked out an argument. And it was good enough that I was like, yeah, that's actually a pretty good. But you're not good at this. Like, I hate to tell you. You just be like, trust me, bro. He finally did it. He finally did the, like. You want to convince me? Just like the elder Malpitians, to their credit, they worked out an argument. And they sent it to me, and I read it. Like, one guy sent me like a 20-page like paper on critiquing tag, and I was like, I appreciated it. You're not gonna do that? I'm not interested. Yeah, they can never tell you, except for the other guys. I give them credit. What it was, a year ago or something. They said it was so good that I must respond to it, and they gave a worked out argument that convinced me, and I'm like, yeah, I think that's a pretty good critique and worthy of responding. But like, just trust me, bro. He did it. Blah blah blah. Watch the video. No, I'm. All right. That is it. It is turning 1 o'clock here in Montana. Dude, what is this person talking about? One of my students is saying, I looked in Module 3 and I cannot find paper prompt. Well, let's see who's in error. Is it the deacon or professor, or is it my student? Okay, what? Let's go to modules. They're right. They're right. I'm wrong. See, I can admit when I'm wrong. Paper prompt. Okay. You got it. There it is. I admitted that I'm wrong. Father Paul. Yeah, I'd like to just. You know, I should just work on titles. I'd like to get a dental title. DDM. FDA DDM. Dr. Esquire. What's the CPA you get? Just to be like stupid. This is really fun watching this. Your CPA. $5. Assume my Protestant broker tells me. It was never about OCA up the street tells me I was baptized in an incomplete form. In reality, was I baptized or not? The bishop Well, first of all, you have to go to one of those, okay? The bishop has the power in chrism to and make it valid or invalid. That, like, so if you go to his parish, right, and are received, because the question is about the point of reception. The bishop can actually make it or not make it. It's sort of like the Schrodinger's cat. The look will actually collapse the quantum wave and will actually determine, right? Because he has that divine power to do that. So if you come under Rokor and he tells you you're right, and I don't think he would actually say, I should actually qualify. I don't think he would actually say, you were never baptized. We do not receive that. Okay, so again, it's about reception. They're probably not going to make, and they're kind of misspeaking and being inaccurate if they did say, you were never baptized. They would say that what you did is not accepted in our jurisdiction. Okay, so I have the power to make a real baptism, and this is the way I say it. If you go OCA up the street, right, they're going to say, we will receive that even though it's incomplete. Just like you take your marital thing from the courthouse. Yes, we do not receive that as a sacrament, but we will take that, right, and apply retrospectively. That's basically... But their proclamation before you come in doesn't make it valid or invalid. It's once you're received, what they do with that. Does that make sense? Yes, exactly. Neither one of those cases is your baptism actually valid. They're just saying, so put it that way. Everybody's saying none of them are valid. Now, people use that, they're misusing the language, right, of saying valid. So just put, everybody's saying nobody's valid. Now, what they'll say is, what will we take from what was invalid? Will we take the courthouse marriage certificate? Will we take your or make you do it all over again? The bishop has the power to do that. But none of them are complete until the bishop actually says and gives the chrism. And by the way, this happened in the... Otherwise, we have to say, well, the church, like... And then think about... Then we'd actually have to say it wasn't real. This is what I mean. It's like a type of papism, right? Where it's like, well, if it wasn't done legitimately, right, with the exact words of invocation, or then it didn't work. The magic spell didn't work, and if that didn't work, he wasn't a priest, and then he couldn't do marriages, and it invalidated everything. That's the consequences of your kind of thinking. That it becomes so formulaic, and it's very Western. It's like, no, the bishop does have the ability. So think about it. All of them are incomplete outside of the church. Everybody accepts that, right? It's just, what are we gonna take from that? Like, would you take your like words? Or would you make it so the wife say, I do again? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, no, that's fine. We're going to now complete it with a sacrament of, just like that's in the Orthodox Church itself, of... And it takes away the power of the church. A bit like, does God not have the power to do that? To have chrism complete whatever was lacking? And anything outside is lacking. We all... It's just like, what am I going to make you do given that lacking? What will... Does that make sense? that's the worst part about this kind of rigorism. Again, it's like, then you don't ever know, like, who's, like, does that mean that people receive, they're not in the church? Like, they're not in the church? What if they're made priests later? They're not like, this is the exact problem that happened, recently in the papism. And it literally undid everything. They were like, yeah, you're not married. This person was born out of wedlock. Like, it was just a huge mess. Yes. Now again, I could say, yeah, I think it's better that the bishops do make everybody be baptized. Okay? But I don't think it's invalid when they don't, and I don't think that they're canonically incorrect to, it's almost like supererogation. It's like, yeah, there's a way that I can say, yes, they're correct, but they should be, I would say, but I'm just the deacon. I mean, who am I to say? They should be receiving all of. Yes, it's the bishop's will, that it's his office and charism together with, because the charism's actually authorized by he sends, just like apostolos sends, just like I said, it collapses the wave or not. It makes the cat dead or alive. It's a divine power. It's given to the bishop. It's absolutely. It's like saying, is it? They operate and stand right as ambassadors of the power of God, the apostolic. So it's like saying, is it God that decides who's in the church, or it's like, and what makes something? It's like, absolutely, God gave that power to the bishops. Wouldn't it be a weird thing to be like, wait a minute, so it's God's will that determines if a baptism is real or not? It's like, yeah, that's exactly it. And he gives that power to the bishops. Do organs persist after death? No. Only forms. Um, and Aristotle makes an argument, only the rational soul. Because once it starts acquiring knowledge, i.e., forms, actuality, it's released from its conditions of corruption and potency, which is matter. And so what that means is it starts to constitute an actual identity. It's actuality, being. And being can't change. Because why? Because change implies potency. No potency in actuality. Okay. So the body which is in potency is separated from the form or soul after the acquisition of virtues and knowledge and stuff like that. The body loses its form and what its anima, its life, and that's why it goes and it disintegrates back into, it literally loses the shape and goes back into, but the soul remains because why? It's released itself from the condition of corruption and change by the acquisition of knowledge and virtues, and therefore it continues to exist after the separation of the body. Who is that? Who is Henrietta? Henrietta? I don't know who that is. How can I explain something I don't even know? This is complicated. I think the form is actually in the DNA, which is in the cells. Um, so although they were separated from the actual soul, the form is of the soul is still in acting and keeping those alive. We do know that. So your whole picture of you and your rational animality is literally in every part of you. So that explains the ability to why that could continue to go on and replicate. But it has basically a copy of a meme of your soul code in your cell, which is encoded in your DNA. That's why. Pretty cool, huh? Alrighty, guys. 106. Yeah, the body goes back into the lower elements. So there's no unifying form, so it goes back into whatever those lower forms of a chemical or atom would be, or something like that. And then they preserve that form. Because in aerosol, there's no forms inside of forms. And so that's why you have substantial changes so if you have the form of hydrogen and oxygen, right? And what's their form? Their forms of their gases. No. A copy of her soul is in the cell, right? And it's enough to keep the cell alive at some point and living. But it's not her, it's a copy of it. Because it's separated from the soul. Anyways, going back to, so if you take two forms, hydrogen and oxygen, with the forms of gases, and you put them together, you no longer have two forms in water. You don't have two substances, hydrogen and oxygen, in water. What do you have? You have what in chemistry called substantial change. Those two forms become a new thing, a one form, one essence, which is called water. So it has different properties. There's no gas in there anymore. Okay. But then I can do stuff that what? Splits it back out. If I put an electrode in, positive and negative, split the water apart and put it back into the previous form. So something kind of like that is going in like death, right? So you have the form of the cell, and this, right? But it's a little bit different because the copy of the original whole is now in, and it's enough to kind of keep it replicating and living. All right. I gotta go. It's like 1:09. This is crazy. How long have we been going? Thank you, guys. Thank you. God bless you. Great questions. Until next time, bye-bye.